Relax, sis. We've got the money, right, Sarah? What are you talking about? She's got $100,000 in savings, so don't worry. Sarah, we're counting on you. No. My name is Sarah. I'm a 34-year-old office worker, and I've been married to my husband, Sean, for 10 years. We had our daughter shortly after we got married, so she'll be turning 10 this year. While I don't have any major complaints about my marriage, I do have some issues, particularly concerning money. My husband has a habit of spending excessively on his hobbies. It's not the amount that's the problem, but the frequency and lack of restraint. I insist that he contribute a minimum amount to the household finances, which covers most of our basic expenses like utilities and food. With the limited amount he provides, I've had to cut back on spending and cover rent, our daughter's school tuition, and save for her future education from my salary. That's where my financial dissatisfaction comes from. Another issue is the housework. Despite both of us working, Sean doesn't contribute to household chores. He often claims that if he does it, it'll take longer, using that as an excuse to avoid it. This has led to me handling all the housework on my own. When our daughter was born, Sean was reluctant to help with her care, fearing he might accidentally hurt her. So I ended up managing most of the parenting responsibilities as well. As I reflected on my marriage, I realized that I was quite dissatisfied with my husband. Despite this, we had been together for 10 years, and our daughter was growing up. I knew it wouldn't be wise to consider divorce, especially with her approaching puberty. I tried to convince myself that no marriage is perfect and that disagreements are part of any relationship. However, a recent event made me reconsider. The catalyst was my sister-in-law. One day, she showed up at my doorstep unexpectedly. Sarah, I'm really sorry, but I need to hide out here for a while. What's going on? I've had some trouble with my husband. Can I stay here for a bit? What happened with Ken? She didn't answer directly and kept avoiding the question. Her vague responses only deepened my concern and made me question everything. I wasn't convinced by her vague explanations, so I decided to wait for my husband to come home from work. He arrived around 8 p.m., and after we had put our daughter to bed, we all sat down for a conversation. My sister-in-law, my husband, and I. So what happened? I asked my sister-in-law. Ken suddenly snapped and told me he wants a divorce. What? I was shocked. Ken had always seemed like a sincere man, so the idea of him suddenly getting angry and asking for a divorce was surprising. Do you know why Ken got so angry? Why are you asking me that? I just find it hard to believe he gets so upset without a reason, I replied. I noticed my sister-in-law seemed anxious, which only made me more curious. Sarah, why have you been defending Ken all this time? Are you involved with him in some way? Of course not, I said, trying to stay calm. I doubt it, my husband interjected with a laugh. She doesn't have time for that, and besides, she always leaves her phone on the table. Though my husband's defense was meant to reassure me, it only added to my irritation. I was too busy with work, house chores, and raising the kids to have much time for my phone. I rushed to make dinner after work, barely glancing at my phone. In the end, my sister-in-law couldn't provide a clear reason for her husband's behavior, so my husband and I decided to speak with Ken directly. When Ken arrived at our house, my sister-in-law chose to stay away to avoid the awkwardness. Ken greeted us with a polite apology. I'm really sorry for causing you both so much trouble. I had always known him to be sincere and level-headed, so his sudden anger was surprising. Ken, why did you ask for a divorce? You've only been married for a year. Isn't that a bit extreme? There must be a reason. Ken explained. She spent all my money without my permission. Really? How much did you have saved? I asked, stunned. $50,000, Ken replied. My husband and I exchanged surprised glances. $50,000 in just 1 year. That's roughly $4,100 a month. Considering that Ken had been providing enough money from his income to cover living and other necessary expenses, it was baffling to think of such a large sum being spent. It turned out my sister-in-law had been using the money for her own entertainment. Given the situation, it was understandable why Ken was furious. Anyone in his position would be, and I could relate. It would be challenging to stay married to someone with such a reckless spending habit. Are you okay? I asked, noticing Ken's frustration. Yeah, I'm fine, Ken replied. I thought about my own husband's spending issues. It seemed clear that financial habits might run in the family. If she doesn't pay back the $50,000, you should consider divorcing her. You don't have kids, so it might be a good idea. As I nodded in agreement, my husband abruptly said, "Okay, I'll make sure my sister pays you back." I was taken aback by his certainty and didn't quite understand where his confidence came from. Ken, however, simply said, "I'd appreciate that." With the conversation settled, I decided to observe how things would unfold. After Ken left, my sister-in-law returned home. "What did he say?" I asked her. "He said I spent all his savings, $50,000. Oh, I used it for living expenses." I tried to explain to him, but he didn't understand. But Ken said he had a separate account for living expenses. My sister-in-law snapped. "You don't know anything, so just stay out of it," she added harshly. She had always had a tendency to belittle me. Honestly, I agreed with Ken. If my sister-in-law couldn't manage her finances responsibly, perhaps divorce was the best option. Ken had made it clear he would only forgive her if she paid back the $50,000. "How can I possibly pay that back? I'm just a housewife," she protested. "If you can't pay it back, then don't spend his money," I said firmly. "Well, sis, relax," my husband interjected. "We've got money, right, Sarah?" "What?" "She's got $100,000 in her savings, so don't worry." My sister-in-law's eyes widened with interest. "Sarah, how come you didn't tell me about this sooner?" I was taken aback. "Wait a minute. How did you know about my savings scene?" "That money was something I set aside for my future when I was single. After I got married and had a baby, I intended to use it for our daughter's tuition. I never mentioned it to you. I found out about it when I went to your parents' house," Scene explained. The revelation left me in a state of confusion and frustration. "It was in the second drawer of the closet in your room," Scene said. "You went through my things without my permission? That's unbelievable. We're married, for God's sake. Anyway, your sister-in-law is in trouble, so we need your savings." "What are you talking about? I'm not giving it to you. That money is for our daughter's education. There's no way I'm handing over $100,000 just like that." "You've got $100,000, so give her $50,000. "Huh? Then why don't you pay her instead? Whoever has it should pay." "Sarah, please help me. I'm in the middle of a divorce." "That's none of my business. It's all your fault." "That's terrible. You don't love your family. Love for you means money. Then I don't need that kind of family love. If you don't give me $50,000, I'll divorce you," Scene declared, pulling out the divorce papers from the drawer. "Oh, so you've been preparing for this?" "I had them ready in case something happened." "You've got a lot of nerve trying to get your way." "That's exactly what I want to say to you," Scene retorted, filling out the form. "I'm serious. We can divorce at any time." My sister-in-law grinned as she watched the confrontation unfold. "Well, I'll be one of your witnesses," my sister-in-law said, signing the form with a smirk. "You can either pay me $50,000 or get a divorce," she added. I was baffled by how they thought they could intimidate me. I decided to play along and let the moment pass. The next day, I brought my in-laws and Ken to my house. "Why are you here, Ken? And Mom and Dad, what's going on?" I asked. "We heard the whole story," Ken said. "Scene, don't embarrass yourself," his mother advised. "Sarah, I'm truly sorry about my foolish son and daughter," his father said. "Ken, we also owe you an apology," I said. "Why are you apologizing?" My sister-in-law snapped. "Shut up," her mother said sharply. "We went through your room and found a lot of brown bags and jewelry." "How did you find out?" I asked, stunned. "Ken asked me to look into it," she explained. "You've always had a habit of hiding things you bought from us since you were a child." "I can't stay married to you after you lied about using the money for living expenses," Ken said. "I want you to pay back the $50,000 and get a divorce." "Oh no," my sister-in-law protested. "And Scene, you'll be getting a divorce too," Ken added. "What?" Scene exclaimed. "Sarah already filled out the divorce papers and I signed as a witness. We've already submitted them," Ken said firmly. "What? I won't allow this," Scene shouted. "Won't allow it? What are you talking about? You threatened divorce and demanded that someone who has nothing to do with this take on the debt. You're disgusting," Ken said angrily. "Sarah is my wife, not your property," he continued. "She's not born into your family. She's a stranger to you. and you should have more respect and care for her." When my parents-in-law confronted my husband with a solid argument, he hung his head, unable to respond. My sister-in-law seemed completely overwhelmed and just stood there silent. Thanks to my parents-in-law's intervention, the conversation went smoothly for both Ken and me, and we were able to finalize the divorce without any issues. My sister-in-law sold as many brand-name goods as she could, managing to pay back about $20,000. The remaining balance was covered by my parents-in-law, and she now has to repay them. Under their supervision, she works from morning till night in an effort to settle her debt. As for my ex-husband, I've requested child support. I heard that he now lives alone in a cheaper apartment, but his salary barely covers the rent, living expenses, and child support. Despite moving to a less expensive place, his habit of spending recklessly means he's always broke and has no savings. Once Mom gets discharged, I'm counting on you to take care of her. What? You're going to be the one taking care of her? It's obvious we're family. He threatened me with divorce papers when I refused to take care of my mother-in-law. Do you want to be a poor single mom? If you don't, then just do as you're told. I can't take it anymore. I'm so done with this life. Just watch it. I'll make you regret this for sure. My name is Catherine. I'm 43. I live with my husband, Bob, and our high school-aged daughter, Emma. We get by on Bob's salary and the part-time work I do to support our family. We're not rich by any means, but we have a reasonably good life. Then one day, the worst thing happened. Catherine, it looks like Mom has collapsed and has been taken to the hospital. Ah, your mom. My mother-in-law lies alone at home, but she's spry for her age. Apparently, she hurt her back in an accident while she was out shopping and now has to stay in the hospital for a while. Anyway, it's good that her life's not in danger. I'll go check on her at the hospital tomorrow. All right, take care. Aren't you coming? Huh? Why would I? Right, okay, I'll go alone. Please send my regards to your mom. Why? I don't visit my mother-in-law in the hospital. That's because I've cut ties with her. I've been married to Bob for 20 years. Since the beginning, my mother-in-law has detested me and has gone out of her way to make life difficult. You're really inefficient, aren't you, Catherine? You're not suitable for my son. I wish he had a better wife. I never imagined you'd be this useless, enduring the continuous verbal abuse from my mother-in-law that wore down my spirit. Whatever I did, it was always, father-in-law is useless, not good enough. Poor Bob. And so on. I was met with complaints every time we met. But I held on as long as I could because she was Bob's mother, whom I love. However, even after my daughter Emma was born, the mother-in-law's harsh words did not stop. On the contrary, she started finding fault with Emma as well. Just great, the long-awaited grandchild is a girl. She can't carry on the family name. She's of no use. If it's a girl, she should just at least be pretty. Who on earth does she take after? Amidst the difficult days, the worst situation that finally decided the end of our relationship occurred one day when my mother-in-law was unusually relaxed at our house. My daughter ran up to her with a picture book. "Granny, can you read this?" The moment Emma handed over the book, mother-in-law knocked it down and hurled at Emma, "Don't touch me with your dirty hands. I don't need an unattractive grandchild like you." Emma was startled by her grandmother's loud voice and began to cry. "Granny's scary." I must have been very sad. She was sobbing, and it hurt me to see her like that. Even yelling at my young daughter, I had reached my limit. "Hey, mother-in-law, what do you think you're doing?" I rushed over, but my mother-in-law showed no signs of remorse. Rather, she snapped, "It's your daughter's fault." "You've got to be kidding. I saw what you did. You knocked Emma's book out of her hand, didn't you? Trying to touch me with her dirty hands." "Dirty hands? Can you say that? If you're going to do this to my daughter, don't come to our house anymore. They'll get cheeky with me. I don't care about you all. Why did you come to see Bob? This is also the house of me and Emma. Stop making silly excuses." In this way, my mother-in-law got into a big argument. Bob just stood there flustered, saying, "Hey, both of you, please stop," and didn't even warn his mother. She eventually went home grumbling all the while, but this proved to be the final straw. "I can't deal with your mother anymore. I'm fed up with you not defending me and Emma. Let's get divorced." When I said that, Bob started flustering again. "Hey, wait a minute. Even I find my mom tough to deal with. I just couldn't say anything because it was all so sudden. Today, I'm on your side, Catherine and Emma. People can say anything they want, but unless you act on it, it means nothing. Anyway, I can't take it anymore. Then my husband made a proposal. Okay, if you insist, Catherine, I don't mind if you cut ties with my mom. But please, I beg you, don't divorce me. I was torn. Would there be any benefit staying with such an unreliable husband in the future? Even if we cut ties, could I really avoid any interaction with my husband's mother forever? In the end, the reason I didn't go through with the divorce was because of our daughter. Our daughter adores her father, and he's a good and caring dad when he's with her. For our young daughter's sake, taking away her father right now wouldn't be right. So I decided to put the divorce on hold on the condition that I'd sever ties with my mother-in-law. But if anything else happens, I won't be lenient. I get it. I'll talk to my mom too. And with that, we reached an agreement, and I severed ties with my mother-in-law. I'll never let my daughter meet her grandmother again. That was a condition of our reconciliation. After 10 years, I can't forget what my mother-in-law did. As for visiting her, that's out of the question. Frankly, what happens to my mother-in-law isn't my business. A few days later, my husband came to me with a serious look on his face. Catherine, I need to talk. What is it? My husband looked awkward in response to my question. It's about my mom. Apparently, she'll need care after she's discharged. So what? It'll cost a lot if she goes to a facility, right? So I was thinking we should take care of her at home. Oh, that's impressive. Good luck. No, not me. You. What? What is he talking about? What? You're not seriously. You know that my mother's in a bad way, right, Catherine? He fell silent. The fact that he even suggests this was beyond my comprehension, to avoid any unwarranted expectations. I laid it out for him clearly. Look, I have a job too, you know, and there's no way I can take on the responsibility of caring for your mother. But you're just working part-time, right? Surely you can find some time to take care of my mother. If that's what you think, then I'll just talk to my boss about switching to full-time. How about that? There was no point in dragging out the conversation. My feelings weren't going to change, and his timid demeanor was only annoying me. Although he looked like he wanted to say something, I naturally ignored him. The next day, it seemed he had spoken to his mother in the hospital as she called me. Excuse me, Catherine, what on earth are you thinking, refusing to care for your own mother-in-law? Yes, I refuse. Is there a problem? Her bizarre shriek came through the phone when faced with my calm response. For me, in my time, of course, I've cut you off. Remember, you're not even my mother-in-law to me anymore. I have no desire to help you with your care. What did you just say? How dare you? You and that errant child absolutely will not tolerate this refusal. To be honest, I considered just hanging up on her. It was a hassle. But if I didn't firmly reject her now, she'd probably just keep calling. I was prepared to settle this today, so I faced off with my mother-in-law. Do you remember why I cut you off in the first place, mother-in-law? What do you mean? Are you implying I've done something wrong? Have you already forgotten? Because of your insidious bullying and your appalling attitude towards my daughter. My husband also agreed to this decision. Goodbye. Wait, hold on. With no further discussion, I ended the call and promptly blocked her number. A few days later, Bob tried to bring up the topic again. Hey, about my mom. Again, I couldn't hide my irritation as I responded. Just so we're clear, I have absolutely no sympathy for my mother-in-law. No matter what happens to her, I've told you again and again that I won't provide care, right? Unexpectedly, her normally compliant husband shot back without hesitation. No, you're going to take care of my mom. Count on it. What? What does he mean? I've repeatedly stated that I don't want to have anything to do with my estranged mother-in-law. Is he like a chicken forgetting everything after taking 3 steps? Count on it is not the response I want. I said I will provide care, remember? I fired back defiantly, but my husband is different today. No matter how much I argue, he persistently pushes back. The heated argument I had with my mother-in-law on the phone days ago came to mind. Probably my mother-in-law had given him a piece of her mind afterward. Anyway, you're going to take care of my mom. It's obvious, isn't it? Former family, right? Remember, it was your idea to cut ties with your mother. That was then. My mom is now weak, and it's a different situation. She's not as energetic as she was after hospitalization. Yet you're still talking like a child. Childish? Me? The reason we're in this situation is because of that damn mother-in-law's childish harassment. And according to the conversation on the phone, your mother seemed pretty lively, didn't she? And even my husband repeatedly demands. I take care of his mother. I'm not going to back down. No matter what you say, I can't do what I can't do. And if it's that important to you, you can do it yourself. At that, her husband silently handed her a sheet of paper. What's this? Can't you tell? It's a divorce paper. To her shock, her husband had presented her with a completed divorce form. If you don't want to get divorced, take care of my mom. My silent disbelief only prompted my husband to pressure me more. You'd be in trouble if we divorce now, right? Emma will be a college student next year. You just a part-timer. Can't possibly survive if you divorce me now, right? If you don't like it, just do as you're told. The man who didn't consider my feelings, using our daughter as leverage to threaten me. I just can't continue being married to someone like this. It's impossible. The moment I was convinced of this, I felt my feelings for my husband quickly disappear. I'm going to end this. That's what I thought. Hey, are you even listening? You were all fired up just a moment ago. Now, a divorce is a reality. Are you scared? My husband looked down at me, laughing. My daughter came into the room, probably hearing us argue. Hey, I heard raised voices. What's going on? Then my husband started a tirade on Emma too. Oh, you're just in time. You'll be helping with your grandmother's care too. What? Why me? It's obvious, isn't it? She's your beloved grandma. You could at least help with the caregiving. I couldn't believe that they would impose my mother-in-law's care on my daughter without a second thought. I was so pissed off that I signed the divorce papers as fast as I could. What are you doing, Catherine? Isn't it obvious? I'm signing the divorce papers. I'll go submit them once I'm done. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to agree to the divorce so easily. Bob started to panic. Oh, hey, enough already. Did you even listen to me? You're going to be the one who's going to have a hard time if we get divorced. I don't care. Compared to staying involved with you, any hardship seems bearable. With divorce papers in hand, I began to prepare to leave. Then, perhaps numb to the situation, my husband took the final step. Are you sure about this? If we divorce, you'll have to give up Emma. I'm warning you, I'll get custody. You'll never see our daughter again. A husband who had no doubt in his mind that he's superior to his wife. Truly, how stupid can you be? Even if we get divorced, I will not give up my daughter. I will do whatever it takes to provide for my daughter at all costs. I will get custody of Emma. Shut up. Considering our financial situation, it's natural that I get her. You won't see our daughter again. Tough luck. At that moment, Emma, who had been quietly listening, chimed in. What are you talking about? I'm going with Mom. Ha! At Emma's words, Bob stood there dumbstruck. What are you saying? If you follow your mother, Catherine, you'll only face hardship. I don't care. It's better than being with you, Dad. I would never want to take care of Grandma. That's right. My daughter had not forgotten what my mother-in-law had done to her in the past. I really hate Grandma for bullying Mom. I'm also disgusted with you, Dad, for not helping my mom. I don't care about the money. I'm going to live with Mom. At my daughter's words, a surge of indescribable emotion welled up within me. I had hoped she would choose to come with me, but I never imagined that she thought it through so much. My husband, looking quite pathetic, started trying to persuade us to stay. Wait just a second. Wait, if you're gone, who's gonna take care of the house? Why don't you do it yourself, Dad? My daughter responded with a smirk. You can take care of Grandma and do all the housework all by yourself. That's impossible. I have a job, you know. So what? Mom has been working and doing house chores, and you want her to take care of Grandma on top of that, expecting others to do what you won't do yourself. That's ridiculous. My daughter gave my husband a thorough tongue lashing, leaving him completely stunned. Eventually, he resorted to his usual tactic of crying to win us over. Oh, why are you guys blaming me so much? I just asked for a little help with the caregiving. There was a time when we might have let it slide, but neither my daughter nor I have that kind of patience anymore. Looking at my crying husband, all we could do was shake our heads in disbelief. Let's go, Mom. Let's hurry up and pack our things. Right. My daughter and I each packed our belongings, took the divorce papers, and left the house. My husband kept crying, trying to stop us until the last moment, but of course, we ignored him completely. We submitted the divorce papers at the city hall, and our divorce was finalized. My daughter and I decided to live at my parents' house for a while. By the way, my family runs a flower shop. Right now, I am working part-time and helping out with the family's flower shop, trying to save money for my daughter's college tuition. My husband continued to contact me persistently even after that. Mom is throwing stuff at me. Help me, I can't handle it anymore on my own. Please come back. Since he was so annoying, I blocked his contact. Living with my ill-tempered mother-in-law every day must be quite a struggle, and it seems that my husband is having to care for her day and night without any sleep. Finally, my company has moved to shorter working hours, and my paycheck seems to be barely scraping by. If I had known it would come to this, I should have done whatever it took to put my mother-in-law into a facility. Well, it's too late to talk about what I should have done now. Besides, thanks to my husband making a fuss about caregiving, I'm able to spend these days with my daughter. I guess I should thank him for that bit. From now on, I want to live each day in cooperation with my cherished family. Next customer. Please come this way, I called out as the cash registers grew increasingly crowded. Swiftly, I opened the adjacent register and began guiding customers through their transactions. After a concerted effort, the congestion eased, allowing me to return to restocking shelves. "Mary, you're amazing at ringing up customers so quickly," remarked a fellow part-time employee, breaking the rhythm of my tasks. In this bustling supermarket, a diverse mix of high school students and individuals like myself populated the workforce, making each shift enjoyable. My name is Mary, a 45-year-old part-time housewife who found solace and purpose in this role for the past decade. When my child began elementary school, I sought employment and landed a part-time position at this local market. The environment, filled with fellow housewives and understanding managers, suited my lifestyle perfectly. Over the years, I transitioned into one of the senior part-timers, familiar with both customers and colleagues alike. However, a sudden change disrupted our routine when our beloved manager was transferred to headquarters for what seemed like a promotion. His replacement, a newcomer from the headquarters, lacked the familiarity and competence we had grown accustomed to. Slowly, the atmosphere soared as his managerial style clashed with the store's dynamics. Rumors circulated among part-timers speculating on the president's wife's preferences for young, charismatic managers. It became apparent that our new manager saw her favor, often seen engaging in conversation with her. Despite the dissatisfaction brewing among us, none dared to voice their concerns to the president's wife. Instead, some part-time housewives and student employees quietly began resigning. As the situation unfolded, I found myself contemplating whether it was time to seek alternative part-time employment, unsure of what the future held in this changing environment. I found myself in the crosshairs of the president's wife, her sudden inquiry catching me off guard. "You've been working at the store for quite some time, haven't you? How's your child? Already in college? Which one?" she prodded, surprising me with her directness. "Yes, I've been here since the previous manager," I replied cautiously, not eager to delve into personal matters. Then, with a cutting tone, she remarked, "You seem rather incompetent. I doubt you even attended a decent college, did you?" Her words struck deep, but before I could respond, the register area became inundated with customers. I offered a quick nod to the president's wife and swiftly attended to my duties. In truth, my educational journey had ended with middle school. High school had been a tumultuous time, marked by bullying and eventual dropout during my third year. Since then, I had carved out a life as a part-time worker, eventually meeting my husband in a similar setting and building a life far removed from academic pedigrees. The president's wife, however, seemed to embody a stark contrast. She often boasted about her prestigious university background, yet curiously avoided divulging its name. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off, lacking any particular interest. Perhaps she harbored preconceived notions about part-time workers like myself, assuming we lacked higher education. I recalled overhearing her discussing such matters with the store manager, leaving me to wonder if she looked down upon us. As murmurs circulated among fellow part-timers about similar interrogations, I found myself bracing for another encounter with the president's wife when, sure enough, she returned to the store the following day. "Excuse me," her voice cut through the air, signaling another potentially tense exchange. My attention snapped up when the president's wife directed her gaze towards me, a smirk playing on her lips as if she found amusement in some private joke. Despite the urge to react, I managed to rein in my irritation, keeping my emotions in check as she began to speak. So, you're just a middle school graduate, aren't you? I never pegged you for a college goer, but to think you're managing here with that level of education is quite something, she remarked, her words dripping with thinly veiled condescension. I couldn't help but wonder where she had gleaned this information from, until I recalled the previous day's incident when the store manager had been scrutinizing the part-timers' resumes in the office. It seemed that what should have been confidential information had somehow found its way into the president's wife's hands. Annoyance bubbled within me at the thought of her freely sharing such personal details with other employees. I had never sought to fabricate my educational background, but the audacity of someone spreading rumors about my academic history grated on my nerves. While my fellow part-time colleagues seemed unfazed by the revelation, the president's wife took every opportunity to remind me of my supposed educational shortcomings. It became her refrain, peppering our interactions with thinly veiled jabs. Maybe you wouldn't understand, being just a middle school graduate, she would quip, using my education as a pretext to assign me menial tasks like cleaning. The repetition of her taunts grated on my nerves, feeling a growing resentment towards my workplace. I began to question why I subjected myself to such treatment, feeling increasingly disheartened by her relentless needling. A few days later, when she returned to the store, her mere presence was enough to stir up irritation within me. As I attempted to sidestep her, she caught my eye and gestured towards the cardboard box storage area, an area typically left untouched as it was designated for supplier use. People like you should be familiar with garbage, she sneered, her words laced with disdain. Middle school graduates like yourself are just here to collect a paycheck. Her words stung, delivered in the privacy of the back room, shielded from the scrutiny of customers. It was a deliberate attempt to belittle me, a reminder of my perceived inadequacies in her eyes. I had always managed to endure, especially since most interactions occurred in the bustling sales area. But on that particular day, the weight of my pent-up frustration became too much to bear. Excuse me, but I believe I earned my paycheck through diligent work, regardless of my educational background, I interjected, my tone laced with simmering anger. The president's wife appeared taken aback, clearly unaccustomed to such pushback. If you're going to be here, why not contribute something beneficial to the store? We're never quite sure what you're up to, she retorted, her words dripping with disdain. Ignoring the curious glances of passing colleagues, I pressed on. And what exactly are you contributing by gracing us with your presence? Chatting with the manager, flirting with male employees and high school part-timers, looking down on the rest of us? I challenged, refusing to back down. Her face flushed crimson with rage as my words hit their mark. Unlike someone like you, I have a busy schedule. Coming here takes time out of my day, she shot back, attempting to assert her superiority. I couldn't help but scoff at her assertion. Do you truly believe that? Neither the employees nor the customers share your sentiment. It's intriguing how some with impressive educational backgrounds prove utterly ineffectual in practice, I countered, releasing the resentment I had long harbored towards her condescending attitude. Clearly flustered by my unexpected retort, the president's wife struggled to conjure a suitable response, resorting to tired clichés. Do you honestly think you can continue working here after speaking to me like that? She challenged, her voice tinged with disbelief. Without hesitation, I delivered my final verdict. Then I'll resign, I declared, refusing to tolerate any further belittlement. In response, the president's wife let out a mocking laugh. Well, that'll save us on labor costs, she sneered, her words dripping with derision. I returned the smile, nodding in agreement. Yes, that's right. Good for you, I affirmed before making my way towards the locker room. Inside, I found a fellow part-timer who had witnessed the earlier exchange. I poured out the details of what had transpired, recounting the frustrations that had been building up. Mary, are you really quitting? She asked, her expression reflecting the sadness of our shared experiences over the years. It just hasn't been the same since the manager changed. It feels like we're only here out of obligation, I confided, echoing her sentiments. With so many people leaving, you'd think they'd hire more staff, but they'd rather cut costs. She nodded in understanding. It's becoming unbearable. I don't blame you for wanting out. Leaving the locker room behind, I headed towards where the manager and the president's wife were engaged in conversation. Without preamble, I made my intentions clear. That's it, I'm done, I stated firmly, meeting their surprised gazes head-on. The president's wife chuckled, seemingly amused by the news. So, The junior high school graduate is calling it quits. I wonder where someone like you will find work, she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. I refuse to let her words rattle me. Even if I have nowhere else lined up, I won't be coming back here. I'll return my uniform next week. Thank you for everything, I declared, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. As I exited the supermarket, a sense of relief washed over me. The following week, when I returned to return my uniform, I found the store abuzz with commotion. The manager was being berated by irate customers near the cash register, suggesting some sort of transaction error. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of peace knowing that I had made the right decision to leave. With my resignation already settled, I made my way towards the office to return my uniform. As I approached the door, the unmistakable voice of the president's wife reached my ears, giving me pause. Reluctantly, I pushed the door open, finding the former manager inside. Despite his new role at headquarters, my ingrained habit led me to address him as manager out of reflex. It seemed the president's wife had been engaged in conversation with him, but she hastily departed upon my arrival. What happened at the register? The former manager queried, his expression troubled. He proceeded to inform me of a spate of recent complaints at the store since my departure. With a cascade of resignations following mine, the store had been left scrambling to cope with the sudden exodus of part-timers and student workers. Though the manager attempted to fill in on the sales floor, his lack of familiarity with basic tasks like stocking shelves and operating the register led to a litany of customer complaints. Today's incident, however, involved a particularly embarrassing misstep. The president's wife, while conversing with a male employee, was mistaken for staff by a customer. Brushing off the inquiry, she exacerbated the situation when the manager inadvertently disclosed her true identity, sparking further discontent among patrons. As the register area swelled with customers, the absence of experienced part-timers compounded the chaos. Both unfamiliar employees and the manager found themselves manning the registers, resulting in numerous errors and lengthy delays. The escalating frustration among customers culminated in the manager facing a barrage of complaints, exacerbating an already tumultuous situation. Turning to me, the former store manager sought insight into the unfolding debacle, hoping for some semblance of understanding in the aftermath of my departure. When asked why I had decided to quit, I didn't hesitate to respond honestly. The former manager seemed genuinely interested in my reasons for leaving, and I felt it was only fair to provide him with the truth. In turn, he confided in me that he had heard rumors regarding the president's wife's educational background. While he lacked specific details, the word on the grapevine was that she had only graduated from high school. This revelation left me pondering the irony of her previous educational condescension. Could it be that the president's wife, with her supposed lack of higher education, was projecting her own insecurities onto others? It certainly made her seem all the more formidable and unpredictable. 2 weeks later, the supermarket I had once called my workplace stood deserted. The usual throng of customers was conspicuously absent, a stark contrast to the bustling scenes of my former shifts. It's no surprise, given all those complaints, I mused to myself as I observed the desolate scene. Lost in thought, I was approached from behind by the former store manager. After exchanging pleasantries, he mentioned a new store opening just one station away. He extended an offer, asking if I would be interested in joining the team. It appeared that an employee he had trained was being promoted to the position of store manager at the new location. Knowing the caliber of this individual, I felt a sense of trust and reassurance. I nodded in agreement and wasted no time in reaching out to my former part-time comrades. Upon confirmation of my role at the new store, I discovered that some of my former colleagues would also be joining me, a comforting realization amidst the uncertainty of change. Under the guidance of an understanding manager, I quickly settled into my new role. The atmosphere was welcoming, and I found it easy to establish rapport with my coworkers, both old and new. The new store introduced innovative offerings, such as local side dishes and bread, which proved to be a hit with customers. As I embraced this fresh start, I couldn't help but feel optimistic about the opportunities that lay ahead. As I settled into my new role at the store, I was greeted by familiar faces from my time at the previous location. The transition to the new store went smoothly, marked by a successful launch and positive feedback from both customers and employees. However, I soon heard troubling reports about the old store. It had become notably quiet, and the manager found themselves facing frequent scoldings during head office meetings. A string of new hires as part-timers quickly came and went, exacerbating the ongoing staff shortage. Finding a new part-time job had brought a sense of relief, and I was content to work happily as I had before. But about a month into my tenure at the new store, the president's wife made a surprising appearance before me. Her unexpected visit seemed to be aimed directly at me, as she wasted no time in addressing the rumors she had heard. "I heard there's a junior high school dropout working at our store again, so I came to check," she stated bluntly. I couldn't help but sigh at her accusatory tone. "What's the issue?" "I haven't done anything wrong," I replied, feeling unfairly targeted. She persisted, laying blame at my feet for the troubles at the old store. But I refused to accept her accusations. "Isn't it more accurate to say that you're the one engaging in power harassment?" I challenged, frustration simmering beneath the surface. Former colleagues from the previous store attempted to intervene, but I waved them off. I couldn't let them shoulder the blame for something they weren't responsible for. As a middle school graduate, I can't possibly be held accountable for all the employees quitting, I asserted, refusing to be intimidated. The president's wife's anger flared at my defiance, but I stood my ground, supported by nods of agreement from fellow part-timers. "If you're having trouble understanding, let me spell it out for you. Your disdain for our educational backgrounds and the manager's incompetence have created a toxic environment," I explained, my words ringing with conviction. In the end, no one wants to endure power harassment while working part-time, and it was time for the president's wife to acknowledge the real issues at hand. When I accused the president's wife of power harassment, she immediately raised her voice in denial. "Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?" she retorted, her tone sharp with indignation. Just as she attempted to grab hold of me, the manager intervened, asserting firmly, "Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?" Despite the risk to his own position, the manager stood his ground. "I am the manager of this store, and it's my duty to protect the employees. I will fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not," he declared, earning applause from the other part-timers. With a resigned sigh, I reached for my smartphone. "I have evidence of power harassment," I stated calmly before playing a video. The footage showed the president's wife berating another part-timer at the previous store, clearly demonstrating a pattern of abusive behavior. As more part-timers stepped forward with their own recordings, it became evident that we had all experienced her mistreatment. "We're going to sue her," I announced, met with resolute nods of agreement from my colleagues and the manager. Furious at the manager's defiance, the president's wife impulsively fired him on the spot. But to her dismay, I revealed that I had recorded her dismissal as well, ensuring the manager's protection. Realizing the depth of her self-inflicted predicament, the president's wife attempted to flee. But before she could escape, I confronted her one final time. "There are more important things than education, aren't there? Sometimes humanity matters more in society," I remarked pointedly, causing her to pause. "How did you know?" she muttered, inadvertently admitting to her own insecurities. With her self-destruction complete, the president's wife retreated at a speed I had never seen before. In the aftermath, we pursued legal action against her, armed with solid evidence and the support of fellow part-timers. As news of her misconduct spread, similar complaints emerged from other stores, leading to a reckoning for her behavior. Forced to confront the consequences, the president demanded she repay her debts by working. It was a satisfying sight to witness her laboring angrily at a nearby drugstore, a fitting end to her reign of mistreatment. With a trustworthy manager at our helm, we continued our work with renewed dedication, free from the shadow of power harassment.